All right, I think we are live and good to go here. Tyson, what's going on, man?
I
How
am
you doing?
so excited, man. 2025 is here. The off season is here. Opportunity is in front of us. We got a crazy amount of candidates. It's an exciting time, man. Like I'm looking forward to this conversation, to be honest with you, because like there's so many different things we can discuss and analyze and debate. My favorite show is gonna be tonight. I promise you.
Yeah, so I know we were talking before, I clicked live here. But one thing I forgot to tell you. So we're gonna break down every GM candidate and every head coaching candidate, and I figured you would do like a 10 to 20-minute biography and an explanation on all these guys' backgrounds and stuff. So
Oh, of course. I'll give you the age, what he ate for dinner tonight, where he grew up, and his high school.
yeah, like 5-6 hour stream if you're cool with that.
I mean, that's
On the fly.
at minimum. That's the least we can do tonight.
But dude, no, in all seriousness, man, the Jets are making just headline after it almost feels like with every hour that passes, there's a new name in the mix.
Are you impressed or you think it's overkill? Because for me, we wanted a comprehensive search where you want to explore every avenue. It could be, experienced coach, inexperienced coach, quarterback coach. Like they're literally covering every base, which all you could really ask for. Like, I'm not mad about it. I'm like, you know what? This is a thorough search. They seem prepared, they seem calculated, and they're executing it like a plan that to me, it's a good start, honestly.
I personally like it, man. I mean, like the Jets they've been horrible, right? Like the playoff drought, whatever, not reaching 500. Talk to as many people as you can. You never know who's going to bomb an interview.
Yep.
You can go out and talk to the biggest name out there and he could bomb.
Yep.
Just completely whiff. And then it's like, well, great. We just put all of our eggs in this basket where no one told us that we had to do that. We just chose to do that. And you never know. You might talk to, a young coordinator or whoever it may be, a former head coach that has a bad reputation, like a Matt Nagy or someone, and they might blow you away with their plan and their overall knowledge for your roster and what they would do moving forward. How do they command a room? What's their vision? How would they address the issues with the New York Jets? You never know. So talk to as many people as you can realistically, because I do think it reaches a point of overkill when it gets to so obviously the Jets have interviewed Vrabel, we've interviewed Rex and Rivera are the known ones right now. We're set to interview Glenn, I think this week.
Yep.
Matt Nagy tomorrow.
Yep.
So I guess maybe my advice to the Jets is, of course, depending on how the previous interviews went, but with Glenn and Nagy, of course, go into it with an open mind. But if they blow you, like if they just come in and just hit an absolute home run, like make a note of that and schedule that second interview. If of course all parties are interested, has to be a two-way street. But I don't want the Jets to Tannenbaum, Woody, whoever's going to be heading these things up, saying, "Oh, Nagy or Aaron, this was awesome. This was great. We loved everything that you said, but we're going to go talk to the 9 other candidates and we'll be in touch. See ya." If you like that guy, just schedule the second interview with him and keep it moving pretty quickly. Because at that point, I do think it reaches overkill because it's not like the Jets are the only team that needs a coach and GM.
Especially when it's the top guys like Flores, Aaron Glenn. Like the longer you wait, they could go somewhere else. So it's interesting, but I like the broad scope of it because even though you're interviewing a guy for a head coaching position, you may find somebody like McCown, be like, all right, listen, great interview. Would you be interested in being the offensive coordinator? Or Brian Greasy, quarterback coach. Hey, maybe you could be a coordinator. To interview Darren Rizzi, special teams coach. Like you're collecting a lot of data here where while it is for the head coach, it could fill another position as you move forward. So there's a lot of names out there, but it's encouraging. But I completely agree with you. We all have like preconceived notions about certain people, like Arthur Smith's going to suck, Matt Nagy's going to suck. But if the Jets have their brain trust there and they're like, you know what, this guy really smashed it, where I'm like, this is everything we're looking for. You got to be aggressive, man. You can't wait. So are you okay over there? You dying?
Bro, so I had the flu for a month. I go up to Buffalo, right? And I get sick again, dude. It's something different. So I went to the doctor yesterday. They gave me this inhaler. I have to use it every 4 hours or something. But yeah, coughing like crazy. Yeah, so I pulled up the coaching list. So I'm going to try to share my screen. And you can just kind of give me your 2 cents on some of the different candidates.
I would definitely want to go over the general managers too, man, because I think it's interesting that one of our conversations we had was how many jobs are going to be open. There's only 2 open right now, which is really good for the Jets, dude. So it actually buys you some time. You're going to get pretty much the pick of who you want, but it buys you time because they're not like 6 teams looking like. For head coaches, there's a lot of jobs available. For general managers, you have an opportunity, to be pretty thorough.
For sure. Yeah, 100%. Sorry, I was on mute.
All right, head coaches.
Let's see. So do you want to do GMs first or head coach?
Let's do GMs first but before we go into GMs, I want to get your feel of what are you looking for in your general manager? I know everybody's saying you want an experienced guy, but if you look at the list of guys they have that they're going to be interviewing, there's some cap guys, there's some legit pro personnel guys, there's some scouting guys. Like, what is your dream scenario for a general manager?
Yeah, man. So for me, and yeah, I appreciate everybody. I think I got sick on the plane ride back.
You got sick watching the Jets.
Yeah, dude. Right. It's been crazy. I don't like going to the doctor, so I always put it off until I'm like, all right, bro, like I'm forced to go, whatever. So yeah, no, I'm all good. I'm hoping to be all better by tomorrow, but yeah, just the coughing's been an issue. But dude, to answer your question, I want someone with a plan. As simple and maybe as dumb as that sounds, I want someone to come in and say, this is the New York Jets. This is how your season went. These are, the things that were successful, that were positive, and this is where you guys failed. This is how I'm going to attack those issues. This is what I'm going to do to clean up the cap. This is what I'm going to do to build this roster up. Personally, like this is just my own kind of subjective take on it. Mm-hmm. I would rather see the Jets rebuild than run it back with the vets and try to, trade more picks, add more veteran players, and spend more money, restructure more deals into the future for like a 1 or a 2 year window.
Do you want an experienced GM or is it going to be a first time GM? Does it matter?
I really don't care, to be honest with you.
So if you're flexible there, it doesn't have to be a first time GM. I mean, it doesn't have to be an experienced one. What are you more concerned with? Are you looking for the guy with the extensive scouting background, personnel background, or can he be pretty much a cap guy? Like he's the accounting guy that will have to hire a pro personnel staff. Like, is there a mix that you're looking for, or doesn't matter? You want just the executive?
Tyson, you still with me?
Yeah.
All right, cool. You see that the screens went black, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what happened. Anyway, no, so I mean, to be like, for me, again, not to be super vanilla here, but I'm cool with either because it's not like it's just one guy and he's just in the office alone. He has the opportunity to build a front office. If you hire Mike Greenberg and he's a financial guy, right?
Yep.
What's stopping him from going out and adding maybe one of the hot scouts in Tampa Bay to be his right hand with the Jets?
Okay,
or bringing in a Louis Riddick with someone with that scouting background to help him out, and obviously Greenberg can help control
So that's the perfect example because everybody's like, I love Greenberg. Okay, I get it. He has all the experience. He reminds me of Tannenbaum, to be honest with you. The same kind of background Tannenbaum had when he came with the Jets. But it's like, if you're going to have a guy like that, do you say, okay, we have to keep some of our front office guys here, our scouting department here until he overhauls it? Like, that's the thing where me personally, dude, I want to blow it all up. I want to wipe out the entire front office and say, start fresh, new mindset, new evaluators, new scouts, everything. I mean, the local scouts you can keep, but you know what I mean? Like you're the decision makers and prominent evaluators. I want gone and start fresh with it. Now with the Greenberg, he literally has to bring in his guy, but pretty much, as let's say a Berganzi, a little bit different. That's his ballpark, dude. He knows that stuff inside out and backwards. Do you have any concerns in that aspect?
Well, I mean, it's a double-edged sword, right? Pick your poison. Do you want, and by the way, this is we're assuming that they're only good at one thing. Right. Borgonzi could be a beast in college scouting and everything like that. He might not have a clue on how to negotiate contracts.
That's my point.
Hand out contracts, but maybe he's a beast at that. And that's the thing with general managers that haven't been one before or that haven't sat in that seat before. We just simply don't know.
But what's harder to find, a cap guy or an evaluator? to me, the cap is extremely important. Never going to discount it because you see teams like the Eagles finding ways all the time, the Rams, the Chiefs manipulating the cap, getting the players they want. But with the Jets, in terms of evaluating your talent and bringing in young talent and quality talent, is it more important to have that GM with that prominent scouting and evaluation background?
It's tough. I mean, I think the financial side's harder. Dealing with agents, knowing when to cave, should you cave in certain negotiations, handling free agency flies for general managers. If you don't know what you're doing in regards to contracts and what players are worth and understanding agents' tactics, understanding the current players on your roster who needs to be paid, what specific ranges, not only just from a total standpoint, but from a guaranteed standpoint, from an annual standpoint, what these guys should be paid.
Okay.
Go ahead.
No, so I'm with you, but my follow-up question is, would you want them to be an assistant GM now, where it's like they have more of a role than just being a cap guy? Like some of these guys are director of pro personnel, which is great, but like, would you want if you're a coordinator now, and like say defensive coordinator, all right, you're getting closer. As a general manager, would you want them to be at least an assistant general manager, or does that not matter to you?
I mean, I guess, in a perfect world, I want the Jets to hire someone who can do both of those things well. I think
are they doing it now, though? But would you want them to be doing it now, currently in their role today, as you interview them? Like, all right, you're assistant GM. You have a better understanding of the roles and responsibilities of the position if you're promoted, as opposed to the guy. Because if you look at Greenberg, he doesn't really fit that role of like the experienced GM kind of guy. He's excellent candidate, but like, I'm not picking holes in him. I'm not saying I don't want him. I'm just saying, I'm trying to get your mindset about how you would evaluate it, though.
No, I mean, this talk is perfect because, you can't just talk about the positives and not bring up the questions or negatives.
Right.
The problem is whenever we're talking about GM candidates, not named like a Ryan Grigson or a Ray Farmer, where they're, they haven't been a GM before.
Yep.
We don't have a draft class. We don't have tendencies. We don't have free agent classes. How do these guys handle the cap? If 5 years from now, someone wants to go interview Joe Douglas for a GM job, they can go out and look at this tenure and say, man, there were a lot of missed free agents. There were a lot of missed draft picks. There were a lot of restructured deals that pushed money into the future.
Yep.
They have that resume, that backstory that they could point to. Well, Douglas has got to get better in these areas. With Borgonzi, with Greenberg, we don't have that. Yeah. We don't have that information. They could be fantastic. They could be the best GM in football. They could also be horrible in certain, in certain aspects. I would say the more experience, the better. But if, someone like John Eric Sullivan from Green Bay walks in, or Greenberg, whoever it may be, and again, kind of circling back to the start of the convo, or, your original question, what am I looking for the most? And my answer was someone with a plan. If that younger, less qualified candidate impresses me more than a Grigson, than a Farmer, one of these guys that have been a general manager before, then I'm going to go with that guy. With coach, it's a little bit different.
Now, how much does the organization factor into your decision on the general manager? Because to me, that means a lot. If you're sitting there learning, like you look at Borgonzi and the Chiefs, a guy we haven't mentioned that I'm really interested in is the guy from the Eagles, Hallaby, I think his name is. Interesting guy. If you look at his resume, do some research on him. Greenberg with the Bucks. Are you focused mainly on the teams that are very successful over the last 4 or 5 years? As you know what, they had to learn something. They're in the building. These teams are doing it right on and off the field. Does that give you a step up? Like, all right, you know what, I could buy it, as opposed to a guy coming from the Colts. You know what I mean? Like, Packers, Vikings makes sense. Lions, Chiefs, Eagles, Baltimore Ravens, like guys like that are like, all right, you're in the building. You have to learn something. You feel a little bit more confident than a guy that's kind of wallowing away with an organization that's not really prominent right now.
For sure. Now, I think if that's the case, right? Like say we'll just use Sullivan, as an example, because Green Bay, well ran, successful, playoffs every year. If they don't make the playoffs, it's just a complete disappointment. If the Jets go out and hire John Eric Sullivan, big contract, lots of money, whatever, the Jets need to give him time to implement what he wants to do to replicate Green Bay, because there's so many teams out there that are just so well built Pittsburgh, Baltimore, KC, Philly, Green Bay, Detroit now, Buffalo's another one. These aren't overnight successes. So why, again, using Sullivan as an example, someone who's worked his way up, been with the Packers for 20 years, has kind of been head to head with Gutekunst his entire career. Like Gutekunst has always been one step ahead of him throughout the entire way. So they're friends, but they're rivals kind of in a sense. You want to hire a guy like Sullivan with the Jets. I don't want Woody pressuring him. Oh, well, we need to go get this big name guy. We need to go sign, Tim Tebow like we did back in the day with Rex Ryan. I don't care about the age. He's going to sell tickets. He's going to sell jerseys, whatever it is. Like, no, you need to allow him to build the team like how he's witnessed, right? Watching Gutekunst, watching Ted Thompson and John Dorsey, all these different, upper echelon front office members. Same thing with Philly and same thing with Baltimore. Like, you can't, like, it's great to go pry someone away from a well-ran organization that knows how to do it, but that candidate now needs to implement what he wants to do. It can't just be like, well, we hired the best guy, but we're forcing him to do stuff.
Dude, I completely agree. And that's why when you hear people say next year they have a win now team, that's not necessarily true, because if you have a guy that comes in with his vision and a coach, say it's whatever, Borgonzi and Aaron Glenn, whatever, and you're like, you know what? We understand what we have in this roster. We don't like the way it's constructed. We need to weed out some of these contracts and some of these players that generally don't fit our system. They don't like, I remember, I think it was when Mangini got rid of Jonathan Vilma back in the day. It was like, well, he's too skinny. He's too small. We like bigger linebackers. That may have to happen here, and the Jets can't get in the, or Woody Johnson can't get in the way. If they evaluate the roster, say, listen, we don't need to pay a corner $30 million because our defense is predicated on a pass rush. Okay, that's your vision. And that they need to have that, your plan, that mindset. But we've got to understand there may be things that happen that are uncomfortable, trusting that we got to trust them, right? Like if they're gonna put it in the mold of what they want, we have to follow the blueprint then.
But to me, I agree with you. I think for me, a lot of those questions need to be answered in those interviews, 100%. Not after they get the job.
Yep.
I don't want to be talking about a Sauce Gardner contract and the GM and Woody or Chris Johnson, whoever's going to be calling the shots. They are at a, crossroads after he gets the job. And they're like, well, now there's this big thing. Like the way I envision it, like, for example, if the Jets, if the Titans were to hit me up and be like, hey, interview for general manager,
which they should.
I appreciate that, bro. Thank you, bro. How crazy would that be? Just, I always just think about these random, I'm going to wake up and
I'd be on your staff as the ball boy or something. I'd want to like just carry the footballs or something.
Dude, it'd be freaking nuts, man. These guys just don't know just how insane it would be just to work in the NFL like that as a general manager. But anyway, I would, bro, like my plan would be I'm coming in with a full binder. Cap, vision, identity. This is what went wrong. This is what went well. This is how we're going to fix these things. This is exactly how I'm going to do it. Ask me anything about the roster, anything about the future draft picks, right? Early thoughts on who the Titans should take number 1 overall. Lay everything out there. As opposed to, and another thing too that we have to make a note of, no one knows actually how long these interviews are. And a lot of times too, it's like a feeling out process. Yeah. If again, the 33rd team, Tannenbaum, Spielman, Woody, all these different guys, if they haven't met a candidate before, there's going to be like a get to know you process. These interviews aren't like 7-8 hours.
Yeah, but you're right though.
My understanding, it's like 2 to 3.
But you're right. Like you want a guy coming in with a vision. All right, here's your roster. Here's your cap. Here's your future. Here's what I would do right off the bat. And then as you get into your second interview, which will be a lot more thorough, you share exactly what you said is exactly what you share. Be like, you know what? In my vision, based on your roster, I would overturn this. So Woody Johnson, when he makes his final decision, it's not getting blindsided by anything. Like, all right, I knew what I was undertaking when I hired him. His vision was this. I agree with it, and I hired him. So when he wants to roll it out, there is no pushback. Listen, man, you told me I can do this. This is what I want to do. We're moving forward now. That's a really good point, man.
Yeah, and it's like, I mean, of course, it goes without saying, and Afra makes a great point here. Great head coach surrounds himself with a competent staff. A GM needs to do the same thing. Put together a staff that can help him make solid decisions. there's no benefit. And look, no one likes to have their feelings hurt, right?
Right.
Obviously. But in the National Football League, when you look across the organization, you have multiple just tons of people that are millionaires, coaches, players, front office, everyone's millionaires, right? Everyone's famous. Everyone's in these high ranking seats,
Mhm.
they're pretty much, I don't want to say guaranteed jobs if they don't go well, but there's other opportunities within the NFL. So you're pretty much set up for life, you and your family. There needs to be a sense of honesty in interviews. Like if I'm Woody Johnson, I don't want a candidate coming up and telling me, just, oh man, this roster has so much talent. We could be really good. And, I don't know really what happened with the last regime, but I can make the most out of it and stuff like that. Like, no, tell me exactly where we suck.
Yep.
And hit me with the bad news. And same thing with, after these guys get fired or after these guys get hired, on where the issues are. Why are we losing games? And let's just find the cause, find the root of the issue, and then let's work and work hand in hand to fix the issue so everyone's on the same page, as opposed to like beating around the bush and not really talking about it and everyone being so weird and stuff like that. Like, no, tell me what's good, tell me what's bad. Let's get everyone on the same page, 100% honesty. And I think at that point, not only does it like breed a foundation for better conversations moving forward when potential issues arise, whether that's a contract or the team misses on a draft pick, whatever it is, because that stuff's inevitable. It happens to every team. Maybe a bad contract in free agency or whatever. How an injury is handled, finding the replacement. I think if Woody just hires the person that comes in and is just hyping up the Jets, and I'm not
Rex Ryan
100% anti Rex Ryan, but it sounds like Rex Ryan is coming in saying, oh, this team is so talented, X, Y, and Z. I can turn them around. What we saw, under Saleh and Ulbrich, it was just a disgrace. Like, give me the job. I can take it. I would rather hear, why did this team suck? Tell me exactly why this team sucked last season and tell me how you're going to fix it.
Yeah, don't tell me what I want to hear. Tell me how you're going to fix my problems, because I have one of the worst teams in football right now. And that's the honest conversation. Like, listen, I want somebody to say, you know what? This hierarchy here is terrible. There should be a director of football operations. Like, but you have to have those honest, blatant, blunt conversations to fix the mess. So, I mean, I completely agree. I think we're on the same page with that. I like the candidates a lot. There's a lot of interesting ones. And like you said, the thing about this is, even with Brian Gaine, we genuinely don't know what they do. We think we know what they do. We all read the background. You do our research. But at the end of the day, Joe Douglas was a highly qualified candidate that everybody said was a slam dunk. He came here and he fell apart. So you got to go with your best guess based on their resume, their background, and what you think they can do. But then, like you said before, even Afram said, it's also you're only as good as the team around you, the staff you put together with you. And that is really important. If you're Mike Greenberg, you better have an excellent scout or pro personnel guy with you. If you're Braganza, you need a cap guy. But you're like, it's got to be a team, dude. You have to have a quality team, not just one star and 15 peasants.
For sure. Wild Wave, bro. I appreciate you, man. Thank you. Yeah, Gaine and Glenn will be a sweet pairing. Yeah, so I think, off of that, we'll dive into this list here. So I think I got to share my screen again real quick. And we'll pull up the list of both general managers and head coaches.
Yes, sir.
And just kind of go down the list, just, bullet point, just, instant thoughts. So for New York Jets GM, huge list. Yep. Louis Riddick, Jim Nagy, John Robinson, Thomas Dimitroff, all these guys have currently been interviewed. Tyson, out of that group, who gets you fired up the most?
Dimitroff.
Me too.
Who
too?
Like I like Dimitroff a lot. Jim Nagy, so much respect for him and what he does with the Senior Bowl. John Robinson, don't like the way it ended with the Titans, but the Titans are a mess, clearly. Riddick is really interesting to me because he's so respected, he's so thorough, he's so analytical, but he doesn't have the experience that I want in the NFL. The NFL, like, he's not working in a front office now, and that kind of bothers me a little bit. But I think he's a really interesting guy, though.
But he worked his way up, with Philly. He's been with Washington. Yep. He was on, he was in the front office with Andy Reid back in Philadelphia. Like, he's not just a talking head.
No, he's got experience. I wish he was in the office. I wish he was doing it now, though. That's the thing.
Fair enough. Yeah, fair point. So for you, it would be Dimitroff, then
Right.
Riddick out of these four. Okay, I'm in the same boat. And then who we're set to interview is actually hold on. I think we get some breaking news here.
All right.
Bears to interview Pete Carroll.
There it goes. He wanted it. So
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how it
okay. So can I give
comes
you a
out.
hot take right off the bat?
Yeah,
If
hit me.
if the Bears can interview him, the Jets should reach out to him. And reach out and get turned down, but reach out to Pete Carroll and get like if you're interviewing every friggin' body else in the NFL, it can't hurt to talk to Pete Carroll, dude. I'd even interview John Gruden too, but Pete Carroll is now showing that he's willing to be interviewed. The Jets should reach out to him, dude. They absolutely should do that.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, 100% they should definitely reach out. Because there's no negatives that can come with it, right?
Nope.
If Carroll doesn't want the job, he's just gonna tell you I don't want the job, and we just cross the name off and we, I mean, obviously we have a lot of interviews to get to here, so I think the Jets will be fine with all these people that they're talking to. But anyway, Mike Borgonzi, Alec Hallaby, Ray Farmer, Mike Greenberg, Trey Brown, who's an interesting name, Ryan Grigson, and then John Eric Sullivan. And again, these are the guys that have not interviewed, but will interview with the Jets. And Borgonzi's tomorrow.
Yeah, I think Brian Gaines on that list too, right? They added him today to the list.
Oh, true. Yeah. So that's not in the the article here, but yeah, you're right.
This is a really good list, man. That I couldn't pick just two. I like Borgonzi a lot based on his background with the scouting. Tell you, Hallaby. It's funny because I did a video on Hallaby yesterday, and Connor Hughes talked about him today, where it's like he's a really interesting character, but everybody's like, "Oh, Joe Douglas 2.0." I don't live like that, dude. I'm like, if you make one mistake, you can't guarantee the next guy. You're not going to ignore him because Joe Douglas failed. You look at what his resume is and what he's doing and what his role is with the Eagles. He's really interesting. Ray Farmer obviously had the scandal with the texting, whatever. He's still experienced. Greenberg, cap guy, very well respected. Not the assistant GM though. He's like the third in line there, right?
Yes. Yeah, so, senior personnel executive. Dude, I got to be honest. I think out of this list right here, actually, you know what? Screw it. Let's kind of look at all of the candidates combined here. Pick out your top three.
I already gave you my top. Let's see. Top
out
three.
Of the four. Where does Dimitroff and Riddick rank in? Just
if I'm gonna do my top three, Riddick's not in it. It's gonna be
you don't necessarily have to rank them like 3, 2, then 1. Just top three guys that you're interested in. That you would be the most fired up to talk to.
That's really tough, dude. I really like a lot of these guys, to be honest with you. I do. I'm not lying to you.
Bro, the Jets are in a great spot.
There's only 2 jobs available, so you're going to get a quality guy. Now it's a matter. You're picking what you think is the best fit. But there's some really good guys here. They're literally like, if they just say Dimitroff, cool with it. Borgonzi, fine. Hallaby, fine. Greenberg, okay. Trey Brown, wouldn't hate it. Even the Sullivan. I mean, okay, you can based on what we know, you can justify it. But you know what? I'm comfortable with that. I think they got a very good, high quality, general manager, and hopefully it works out. You'd feel encouraged with that, with a lot of these guys.
So I think for me, and I agree with you, man. I think for me, the top 3 would be Borgonzi, John Eric Sullivan from Green Bay. If Woody Johnson allows him to build, because bro, Green Bay, this is one thing that always goes it kind of flies under the radar with the Packers. This is not like the team that makes the sexy moves in the offseason.
Nope.
Oh, we're going to trade up and in the draft and go land so-and-so. We're going to go after the superstar. No, we're going to, draft the D tackles and the offensive linemen. We're not going to draft receivers in the first round. We're going to, allow quarterbacks to develop and really just build from the inside out. And so in other words, it's not a 2-year quick fix.
Yep.
Back to the playoffs. We have to sell our soul to get back there. So that's the only asterisk with Sullivan, right?
Yep.
If the Jets give him money, if the Jets give him time, then you need to allow him to, execute what he wants to do, what he's seen in Green Bay.
I agree.
And not put these Rand Carthen expectations on him where he's out in 2 years,
which is
if you don't win. So I would say Sullivan is in there. Borgonzi's in there. I think Greenberg's really interesting. I think Dimitroff's really interesting. And then Ryan Grigson as well. I'm not a big Grigson guy, but I think his ties are really, really important from Minnesota with the Vikings. There's rumors of, let's see.
Well, you could say the whole thing with Grigson. What are you saying with Grigson? Could he bring Brian Flores with him? Like you could see, like you're seeing the ties, like, Grigson, Flores, McCown. Like you could see all these different things, how they'd all work out.
Yeah, 100%. And Unknown makes a great point here. Grigson, Flores, Josh McCown as OC.
Yep.
So I would say that would be like the top group for me, or the ones that I would be the most interested in. Again, Borgonzi, Greenberg, Grigson, Sullivan, and Dimitrov.
No, dude, I'd have no problem with any of them, dude. And like, it's like an impressive group of candidates where it's like, okay, you can literally, there's no slam dunks. We can't, like, not everybody's gonna love every aspect of your candidate, but they're legitimate, high level, qualified NFL guys that you feel a level of confidence they can take over and do smart things at the organization.
1,000%. 1,000%. I mean, the Jets are in a great spot, dude. Only 2 teams need a general manager, and we just talked about tons of different qualified guys.
But now, here's where my caveat is, though. I'm a lot more encouraged by the available general manager candidates as I am to the head coach candidates. I think the general managers, that's a really strong group there. With the head coach candidates, I mean, the list is comprehensive, but you don't have that slam dunk guy where like, oh, Sean Payton, I want him. Like, there's not that guy out there that I think everybody universally agrees with. There's always that caveat. I like him, but like and it's a decent group, but I think it's more quantity than quality. It seems like to me, in my uneducated opinion.
Yeah, I mean that's totally fair, but I could maybe push back and say like, what is Sean Payton? What did Jim Harbaugh? Would someone like that consider the Jets?
Well, that's
if
always
they were out there.
But that's the case. I mean, you have like you literally have a Pete Carroll out there now. Okay, would Pete Carroll consider them? I mean, they fired him at one point, but like it's interesting, man. It's John Gruden's out there. They're not even interviewing him. That's a guy that's a big name that you can like him or hate him. I don't know why you can't actually interview him. Bring him in and collect data. If you could talk to Brian Greasy, you can talk to John Gruden. It doesn't hurt you. It costs you a flight to Tampa or wherever the hell they're at, Palm Beach. You know what I mean?
Yeah, true. I think that's actually where they're at now.
Yep.
Hey, if they want to come to Tampa, I'll interview. I'll tell. I will work for. I'll accept the job. They don't even have to pay me.
I'll talk to my sources, man. I'll get you in the door.
Sounds good, man. Only requirement is that I need Tyson to be, involved in some of the decision making as well.
Absolutely. I'll be like the bartender for everybody.
So, all right, let's take a look at these head coaching candidates. Vrabel, Rivera, Rex have all interviewed so far. Matt, long list here. Arthur Smith.
But hold on, go those 3 first, though. So you have, to me,
well, this one's pretty obvious on who.
Yeah. Well, none of them, because Vrabel's not going to come here. I think Vrabel's going to be what, Raiders or Patriots, most likely Patriots, because the Patriots interviewing process is a complete scam at this point. What they did today was completely embarrassing, the way they're handling this. But whatever, that's the Patriots. To me, Rex Ryan is an absolute no. So you can love or hate Ron Rivera. He's not my top 3 candidate. But of these 3, I think Vrabel's gone. The other 2, I'm not interested in.
Yeah, and so K-Dude, bro, I appreciate you, man. Thank you. I know you're always in all these streams, so no pressure to send in super chats, but just making all Jet staff, Gain, Glenn, Josh McCown, and DC Rex. One thing I always see is, hire so and so as head coach, but just make Rex DC. I think he's just too big of a personality.
Yep.
I wouldn't want him taking away. Like, I don't see a Vance Joseph situation. Like Vance Joseph's personality is a lot more like reserved, quiet. He's not about the headlines, not about the storylines, things like that. Where with Rex, it's like, just such a massive presence. You wouldn't necessarily want him overriding the head coach if you feel good about the head coaching decision. It'd be different if like Hugh Jackson was the coach, but
the other thing too is the minute you face some kind of adversity, Rex is going to undercut the head coach. Well, I wouldn't do that. It's just going to be going to be almost like that Martindale Dable thing, how it kind of went south towards the end. I think you'd see the same thing. Like Rex wants the job so bad, I wouldn't trust him. And you're right. He's too much of personality, too many headlines, because now they do like weekly interviews too with the coordinators. He'd get way too much attention for like a secondary coach, like not the top coach.
In a perfect world, I would like him. He's a great defensive play caller, great defensive scheme.
Yep.
Yeah, I think he could run a multiple defense. Obviously, he has so many connections to build a defensive staff. But I just think the personality might just be too much. I mean, we see it too with like backup quarterbacks. It's like, Cam Newton, You know, a lot of these like star or like at one point star quarterbacks, they don't really get many backup jobs because of like they're just you know the storylines are going to come up like, oh, should we bench so and so and put in the star, you know? So I feel like a lot of coaching staffs just opt to go the boring route
Yep.
with the backup quarterback.
Yeah, and before we go into the list of guys that are being interviewed, I saw the one comment. I think it's from I forget. The thing's moving kind of quick about. I think it's from the Streets Evangelist. Not interviewing Cohn, Monken, or Chucky is crazy. The one thing about that is the Jets may have reached out to them behind the scenes, and they said, "You know what? I'm not interested." Like the whole Ben Johnson thing was kind of funny. Like, oh, the Jets didn't reach out to him. I'm quite sure he let them know. Listen, I'm not coming there. So let's not waste our time here. Like, there's certain situations that are obvious. If I'm a very picky guy, I'm a hot candidate. You don't have a young quarterback. I'm not coming there. That's just the way it is. So save the energy. Let's save the embarrassment too. Let's not reach out to them and get declined. Let's just not reach out. And like we know where we stand and we're cool with it. You know what I mean? So some of these guys, the Jets interviewed Monken last time and he didn't get the job. He could be bitter about that. So we don't know like what the situation is there. So some of the guys that are not on the list, like Cohn's kind of surprising. Maybe he said, I'm not interested. You know what I mean?
But then again, you can always, I mean, the Jets are, you know, obviously putting in work here, like interviewing or like requesting to interview people left and right. You know, so I would imagine that Cohen, if he has not turned the Jets down, he's going to get a call. If the Jets are if they're interested in Mike Greenberg, they should be interested in Liam Cohen as well.
You would think.
And also too with John Gruden, that kind of seems like the outlier here to a certain degree because I feel like you can just hit him up whenever.
Yep.
Like,
yeah, but why not now?
Like, you know he's prepared.
But they could have hit him up. They could have hit him up 2 weeks ago. They could have literally had him in the building 3 weeks ago. He's not on anybody's staff. So this could be one of the first ones you did behind the scenes. Like, all right, let's talk to him. I agree. I completely agree.
Yeah, it's just another candidate, another potential option with more information. But let's take a look at the list right now. And again, this list is ever growing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we could wake up tomorrow and 2-3, you know, more candidates could be on this list. But as of right now, Arthur Smith, Joe Brady, Jeff Ulbrich, Brian Flores, Josh McCown, Bobby Slowick, Aaron Glenn, Vance Joseph, Matt Nagy, Brian Griese, Darren Reese. Thoughts?
Well, you gotta kind of identify what you're looking for. And I've been pretty consistent. I really, as much as I love Aaron Glenn, I don't want a first-time head coach. I just don't. I think this job requires a lot of leadership, a lot of preparation, a blueprint, and a program that you can walk in day one and not have a learning curve where you got to try to figure out you're learning on the job while trying to implement all this stuff. So to me, Brian Flores is probably the top of the list right now, man. With Vrabel gone, Flores is my guy, I think. I literally think he has that presence about him, which the Jets desperately need. No nonsense, accountability, discipline. The players all love him. He's doing a great job at Minnesota. He's coached under very good coaches. His resume is really good, minus the whole lawsuit with the NFL. And everybody's like, he's Gase 2.0. I completely disagree. So I think he's got it. Go ahead.
No, just to sorry to cut you off, just to throw this in there. I've seen the Gase 2.0 comment about Arthur Smith. I've seen it about Ben Johnson. I've seen it about Brian Flores, and all three guys are completely different.
Yep, 100%. Yeah, but it's like, what are you looking for out of your head coach? To me, defensive coordinator doesn't mean anything to me. Is he a leader of men? Can he change his culture, hold his team accountable, and maximize the potential of his roster? That's what you're looking for. Of course, he needs to have a great offensive coordinator. He brings McCown with him. Is anybody complaining? Probably not. So like I like him a lot. Other than that, I get a little uncomfortable, man, because I know Vance Joseph. A lot of people are talking about him. Steve Spagnuolo is a guy that's very well respected, but it's just this is where the list kind of underwhelming because now you're looking at Matt Nagy doesn't really do it for me. I understand the whole Andy Reid, learning from him, second chance. To me, I'm like, man, do I have to start looking at Aaron Glenn closer after Brian Flores? I don't have that level of confidence. Then it comes down to like Aaron Glenn versus Joe Brady. Then you really don't know what you're getting. Now you're guessing what they're going to be as a head coach. As to, you pretty much know what Brian Flores is. He's probably going to be a better version when he comes here. Like, what do you think?
Well, I'm with you. I think the more if you bring in a Flores, an Arthur Smith, Nagy, Vance. I don't want to include Reezy into the mix because he's just an interim coach.
Yep.
They should come in like battle tested, like they're weathered. They've seen some good, they've seen some bad. They won games, they lost games. They've been hired, they've been fired, and they've also had time to reflect. This is not Saleh interviewing with Jacksonville where it's like a quick turnaround.
Yep.
Has Saleh even had time to process what exactly went not only what went wrong, but how to fix those issues in his next destination, while also coming up and formulating a plan with his new team in a sit-down interview?
Yep.
Probably not. That to me is similar to Gase, where it's just fired then hired.
Yep.
It would be different if it's like a Mike McCarthy, where he's been a coach for 18 years. Yeah, it's not gonna, overwhelm him that much to, jump teams like that. But I think with Flores, right, he's been 1 year with the Steelers, 2 years with the Vikings. He's had time, right? Vance Joseph, actually doing well with the team that he was a head coach of. But he also had that season or two with the Arizona Cardinals as DC. Arthur Smith, obviously, the 1 year removed from Pittsburgh. Matt Nagy, 2 years removed from KC or from Chicago.
Yep.
So, but for me, although I prefer experience, I'm not like the Jets are just not in a position, in my opinion, and who the hell even knows if this is how they're thinking. They're not in a position to walk in to interviews with preconceived notions about candidates, thinking, oh, well, this is Aaron Glenn. I like the defense. I like the leadership. I like the connections. I like how he played for us, but he's not a head coach. So it's going to be, in one ear out the other, or just because of that, I'm not going to give him a fair crack at it. So, if that makes sense.
No, I completely agree. Listen, I'm so torn with this because, like, dude, I love Aaron Glenn to death. But to me, it's like when you look at Aaron Glenn, Joe Brady, these young guys, are they only as good as, like, say Aaron Glenn presents himself. We know what he is. Great coach, great this, great that. Like, okay, we like your vision. Who is going to be your offensive coordinator? Who's going to be your defensive coordinator? If he comes prepared with a veteran OC and like a more veteran staff behind him to help him deal with time management, game management, organizing training camp, organizing the schedule, I feel a little more comfortable with that. Glenn's, he's worked under Parcells. He's worked with Parcells, Sean Payton. He's got an excellent pedigree. He's watching Dan Campbell now. But if he comes in and says, listen, I want, I don't know what, say, whatever, I don't know, Jason Garrett to be my offensive coordinator. Okay. You're bringing in a guy that we know that's been there, done that in the NFL. I'd feel a lot more confident with that than somebody like Saleh coming in with like all these newbies everywhere. You're like, well, what the hell is this? All these first-time guys. That's a recipe for failure. So I think you can differentiate between Joe Brady and Aaron Glenn based on, okay, we like you. What is your staff going to be? And that can help you decide too. We're like, all right, I see what you're trying to do with this and make you feel a little more comfortable for that first-time guy.
Right. Yeah. Right on, Matt. Like, I think that speaks to, again, like the connections where you came from. Just off the top of my head, Aaron Glenn has been around, just as far as just, good coaches. And I'm not necessarily talking about by record, but just coaches that have been around the game for a long time or coaches that maybe excel in one or two areas. Aaron Glenn has been around Dan Campbell, Ben Johnson, Dennis Allen, Sean Payton, Pete Carmichael, Bill Parcells, obviously. And I think just him, he's been around Joe Brady. I think there's something to be said for being a former player, being a scout, being a coach, working his way up with multiple organizations. Again, we were talking about Sullivan before, right? All these years with the Packers. That's great. But I also think it's, there's also other benefits when you bounce around, when you are with the Saints, when you are with the Lions. You just create connections, right? If Aaron Glenn is the head coach and says, all right, you know what, we're going to bring in a former head coach in Dennis Allen to run the defense, and we're going to bring in a former head coach in Anthony Lynn to run the offense.
100%.
Is that going to, would you personally say, you know what, I'm still going to opt for Arthur Smith or Vance Joseph or Flores because they have head coaching experience. If Glenn has a veteran staff like that,
That staff, dude, that would put him right next to Flores for me. Because that would give me a lot more confidence. And again, like I'm an Aaron Glenn fan. Literally, just I
yeah,
follow
he's your
this
guy.
career. He's my guy 100%. I hate him coming here because I don't want it to rip him to shreds. But like if he comes with that preparation, like all right, 2 experienced coordinators, like you know what? Okay, that would push him past a lot of other guys, dude. Because like I understand what Matt Nagy brings to the table and Arthur Smith. Me, they're just not. They don't do it for me. They just don't. I don't. I want that stern. That and the other thing with Aaron Glenn too is not only a former player, he's an all-pro player. Like he played at a very high level. So like he can relate to these guys on a different level. Like he's very relatable to the players. You can talk to them, been there, done that. I know what it's like to do this. Like, I don't know, man. That's a huge part of this, in my opinion. And that's where like Joe Brady's very interesting. I saw the comments about Joe Brady. Okay, a little bit inexperienced. What is he gonna bring to the table? Like, who's he bringing with him from Buffalo or his other ties across the NFL?
You can be just a baller, right, as a head coach, but if you don't have the staff,
Yep,
like
makes a huge
it's not going to
difference,
go
man.
well.
Yep.
Like that's why. I mean, we can look at the Chiefs before Spagnuolo on defense. I mean, how many people just talk crap about the Chiefs defense until they hire Spags, right? And then he got them turned around. Or like Sean McVay's defense. Like that was like there were people that were talking about it until they started to really value the defensive coordinator position. Who else? Kyle Shanahan, same way, right?
Yeah.
Like in that first year, Saleh was horrible. There were talks about like get this guy out.
Yep.
Shanahan stuck with them, and they just invested in the defense. Point is, the staff is really, really important. But let's kind of just go through this list here. You know, obviously, I know we're kind of diving into some of the specifics, but actually, you know what? Real quick, Dante, I appreciate the 5, man. Thank you so much. Why do we think Josh McCown would be a great OC? Does he have good play calling experience? I think when it comes to McCown, you get the former player, the quarterback mindset. He has been around the game for a really, really long time, and you don't get to that point just off of talent. Like you have to be I apologize for all the coughing. You have to be smart. You have to have a high offensive IQ. So,
and he's always been called a coach on the field. Like he always knows the offenses inside out and backwards. Always, helps the young players. Very well respected. The players all love him. Coaches all love him. So you're taking a chance on him, but you have to have faith. And again, when you make him an OC, he's got to have a good quality, veteran guy next to him to help him. They all have that. Give him a very good O-line coach, stuff like that. But you're taking a chance. But his resume speaks for itself. I think it's a shot in the dark, but you feel good about it.
Yeah, and he's a part of the Vikings offensive staff right now, and obviously, granted, the team is stacked, but they're doing pretty good things, over in Minnesota. So I think that's really where the hype is at. Just smart guy, former quarterback, former player, been around the game for a long time. I think, dude, this is not necessarily me campaigning for these candidates, but I think some of the names will excite the Jets. Arthur Smith being one of them. What's kind of your take on Arthur? Again, this is not me saying I want him. This is me saying I could see it happening.
Why would you see that happening? Because his resume as a head coach isn't good. So is it his?
Well, it's not horrible if we're objective. It's not horrible.
It's not horrible, but it's not great. And the Jets were high on him last time. They literally wanted to hire him this offseason to be the offensive consultant for them. So they think highly of him. But what do you think he brings to the table as a head coach that would excite them? The experience, the offensive mind. Like what else what's your selling point?
Well, just to kind of quickly push. So like, I think it's tough to find a head coach with experience that had a ton of success.
True.
You know what I mean? Like what coach is out there outside of potentially Mike McCarthy and Pete Carroll that is going to be coming in with like, a Super Bowl as a head coach and, over 150 wins. You know what I mean? Like it's just tough to find. Like these guys were fired for a reason. Arthur Smith is not a perfect candidate, right? But it could have been a lot worse than 7-10, 7-10, 7-10.
But what's his strength? If you look at what the Jets need, what is his strength that would be a good match with the organization?
I think he would look at the Jets as a team that has personnel that fits what he wants to do, which is run the ball. I think the Jets right now have 4 out of the 5 offensive linemen figured out. They don't have to worry about it.
Yep.
All they got to do is find a right tackle. They have Brees, Braylon, Isaiah Davis has shown he can play.
Mhm.
I think if you are a guy in Arthur Smith, you can look at the free agent market and say, hey, Justin Fields is out there. I've worked with him. He knows my system. It's not going to be this huge onboarding period. We can get rid of Rodgers, not worry about the cap hit in 2026, get rid of the drama, run the ball with these, stud running backs and have a quarterback that I've already worked with on a cheap 1-year deal. I think having that plan and presenting that to the Jets and saying, hey, you guys already have a lot of the pieces figured out that I want to establish. Like, for example, if let's just say, I'm not predicting this to happen, I'm just using this as an example. If Brian Flores or Aaron Glenn come in and say, hey, this is what we want to do on defense, on offense, whatever, but it's going to take like 2 to 3 years to like build through the draft or like to really accumulate the talent with free agents and draft picks. I think Woody is probably going to prefer someone to come in and say, hey, no, you guys already have a lot of what we want to do. So I can step in and it's going to look a little bit more seamless and we don't necessarily have to sell full rebuilds to the fans and to the media. I think, you just as a coach, you're looking at
But that's a terrible way to handle it, though.
in regards to who, Arthur or the Jets?
Woody Johnson. If Woody Johnson says, I think we need to win next year, that's already putting your new regime in a tough spot. Where if I want to rebuild, it may take an ugliness next year, weeding out contracts you don't want, players you don't want, bringing in guys you want. It may take a year to just cleanse what's already here. And then year 2, it may happen. So I wouldn't want to say, you know what? If you give me the best chance to win this year, 2025, I'm going to hire you. That can't be the vision. It's short-sighted. I want the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years of being good football.
Yeah, no, 100%, man. I'm not saying Arthur would come in and say, give me Rodgers, give me Devontae,
Right.
give me Tyron Smith, all these veterans. I'm just simply saying and I'm not saying, because me and you don't have the same kind of outlook as Woody Johnson, right?
No.
We don't have the same perspective.
We have common sense.
So knowing how Woody Johnson operates, if he's, and again, this is splitting hairs here, but if he's sitting down talking to Glenn, Flores, Arthur, and one of those 3 says, no, I love what you guys have. You guys already, we don't need to find a left tackle. We don't need to find a running back. We don't need to find a starting center because this is exactly what I'm looking for in my offense.
Yeah.
And again, this is not me saying if I was the decision maker, I'm just trying to predict what Woody is going to like to hear.
Yeah.
And it seems like Woody likes the quick results.
That's the problem of 14 years, no playoffs. That's the problem with that. But I respect what you're saying. I know what you're saying, but that would bother me if that's the approach where it's like, well, let's just try to take what we have here, put some Band-Aids on it, add some toast, and we're gonna be fine. Like, no, I'm kind of, I don't say full rebuild, but I want to clean this up, dude.
I do too.
You literally have to. Like, you want to make a run here for 5, 6, 8, 9 years of being consistently 8, 9, 10 wins, having a chance, not 4 or 5 wins every year, struggling with, just chasing the next free agent.
I'm with you, bro. You don't have to sell me on it. Like, we're in the same boat. Chris, I appreciate you, man. I got the inhaler. I got the Allegra. I hope to be better tomorrow. But I appreciate the 5, man. It really does mean a lot.
So then, man, if you go from Arthur Smith, tell me what your thoughts on are Matt Nagy then.
I prefer Nagy over Smith.
So do I.
I think. All right, so hear me out. I'm going to drop a video on this tomorrow.
We're getting an exclusive right now. We're getting the scoop right now.
So let me just kind of. So where the Jets are at right now, right? We can interview people that are 1 seeds. Matt Nagy's a part of the Chiefs, 1 seed. We're also going to be talking to Borgonzi. Mm-hmm. Both interviews are taking place tomorrow down in Florida. I think if you're Woody, again, the 33rd team, if everything goes well with the Borgonzi interview and he seems to be a front runner, right? He just separates himself from John Robinson and Dimitroff, all these guys, and you are walking away impressed. I think, you follow that interview up with sitting down with Matt Nagy separate of Borgonzi And if that goes well, again, Nagy checks a lot of the boxes that we've heard. Former head coach, he's been in he's performed in a big market. He's dealt with, everything that comes with a big market, the pressures. He's an offensive guy. This is
You
not
can't
me
even keep a
slamming
straight
on
face right now. You can't even keep a straight face. You're smiling while you're saying this.
I'm objectively looking at the facts, what Matt Nagy is. This is not my opinion on him. I'm just looking at what he is. And again, this is me just trying to predict what the Jets are going to do. If I was Woody Johnson, you know what I would do in regards to Brian Flores and, just bringing in someone like that. But again, this is the Jets. They operate clearly on a different wavelength than other teams out there. If, again, the Borgonzi interview goes well, separate, and then you have Nagy step in, and that interview goes well, I think, again, the Jets regime right now, Woody, Chris, and the 33rd team can say, hey, we like this coach, we like this GM. They're both coming in from Kansas City. We can move forward, schedule second interviews with both. And then from that point, ask Borgonzi, hey, what are your thoughts on working with Matt Nagy from KC? And from those two standpoints, I would assume a lot of Kansas City Chief members, both in the front office and in the coaching staff, have they could potentially bounce as well over to New York.
Okay, so to counter your point, I respect what you're saying. I completely understand what you're saying. So say you interview Borgonzi and he nails it. He's trying to give me. You're giving me anxiety right now. The way you talk about Nagy, I'm getting sweats over here. But no, so you have Borgonzi. say he nails the interview. Borgonzi does great. You're like, I like him. And Borgonzi says, you know what? My guy is Aaron Glenn. The Jets and the 33rd team say, you know what? Our guy is Brian Flores, because you're interviewing coaches before the general manager's in place, which is the problem you're going to have. Not problem, but potential problem you have. So you interview Aaron Glenn, whatever. He kills it. Woody Johnson's like, we found our guy. We love him, this and that. Borgonzi's like, I'm not an Aaron Glenn guy. I'm a Brian Flores guy. Then what do you do? Because now you have a divided where we've all said you want your general manager to hire the head coach, but now everybody else in your building wants somebody else.
Dude, these comments are so funny about Nagy. Bro, my brother dated Nagy's niece, funny enough, years ago. But in any case, you got to opt for what the GM wants. If you are sold on the GM and you want to hire that GM, then allow that general manager to pick the coach that he wants. Of course, there has to be some level of, agreement. Like Woody can't say, I effing hate that guy. Yeah. This guy sucks. And we're not going to hire him because he completely bombed the interview. He said, I don't know to every question, like something like that, obviously. But, I think, I think if that was the case, if the GM was obsessed with a head coaching candidate like that, then we have to have some questions. All right, is that GM candidate the right guy? I think it goes back to the point of hire the GM first, then as a unit, hire the coach. I'm thankful that Tannenbaum and Spielman are helping out here, because if this was just Woody, I feel like this would be off the rails. But
I'd also be curious to see, once they interview Borgonzi and Greenberg and all these guys, if other names get added to the head coach interview list, where they're like, all right, listen, you guys do a pretty comprehensive search, but the guys we like are guys that are not on your list right now. So you could say to Borgonzi, like, listen, you guys have a pretty good list. Add these two, because I want you guys to see them because they're high on my list. I'm curious to see if if there's any kind of fluctuation on the list now once the next week goes by.
I have a feeling, right? No sources or anything, with this. This is just a educated guess or a non-educated guess. I think what the Jets are doing is they're trying to talk to GMs, and obviously they're hoping that they all go well. But on the side here, they're talking to all these head coaches, and it's almost like they're putting together their own like PowerPoint presentation. Like they're just gathering data and info on all of these different guys.
Yeah.
And the ones that they like, let's just use Glenn and Flores for an example, right? Let's do three. Throw in Arthur Smith. They'll take those three guys. And when they are talking to GMs, how do you feel about Arthur Smith? How do you feel about Aaron Glenn and Flores? And if one of those guys hits, the Jets are like, whoa, we like
Yep.
you, we like him, you like
Yeah.
him as well. Let's see if this could happen.
Yeah, that's a really good point. If Aaron Glenn impresses him, Borganzi's like, yeah, I like him too. He's on my list of guys I'd have, or they have the whole thing with Greenberg is, oh, I like Liam Cohen. Why is he not on your list right now? Like that's too.
Yeah. So I think that could be what the Jets are thinking. Just they're it's like they're operating in two different camps, but they're collecting information from both. And I also think what they're doing is they're using that information to maybe vet the other candidates, right? Like, because that's one thing with the Jets, dude. Woody, Tannenbaum, former GM, Spielman, former GM. Like, everyone has a bit of an ego. Everyone thinks that they know what they're doing.
Yep.
If they walk away just completely blown away from a Joe Brady interview, like, we freaking love this guy. He killed it.
Mm-hmm.
We're seeing what he's doing in Buffalo, all these things. Worked with, Sean Payton, Sean McDermott, all these great coaches. Worked with Joe Burrow. And then we talked to Borgonzi, and he is like, Joe Brady, are you kidding me? No. I think in the Jets' mind, they might be thinking, we're smarter than you. We could
100%.
potentially go in. And again, this is just my assumption here. Just
I agree.
Yeah. So DKB, yeah, kind of like that, to be honest. Just like a little, it's like the Jets know that they have a lot of issues.
Mm-hmm.
They're trying to talk to everybody, and who knows if they're going to make the right move. I just think that they want to get everyone on the same page, and they don't necessarily want to just give the keys to the castle to one GM. That's just my guess.
Yeah, I agree. It's so interesting. There's so many levels to this, and like you said, like there's names being added every day, and once the interviews happen this week, more rumors are going to come out. Stories are going to be leaked out. Who's got ties to who do they want? And I'm sure that I'm sure tomorrow something's come out about Rex because Rex can't keep his mouth shut. So it's going to be really interesting. And the one thing that I wanted to ask you is, and this is not just an honest question because I'm curious to see what you think about this. How much does the role of Aaron Rodgers play in this at all with any of these guys? I completely agree because I don't care how he played on Sunday. I think it's whatever this coaching staff says or GM says, I'm completely fine with. They say he's gone, he's gone. Like but is there any, do you see any world where Woody Johnson says, you know what? He could be our bridge guy next year. We kind of want to keep him in the building. Is that any concern that could scare somebody away, or you think that's not the case anymore?
Oh, yeah. I think that could definitely scare. I think there's going to be people that want Rodgers, and I think there's going to be people that don't want him. Yeah. I find it very hard to believe that there's going to be candidates that walk in and say, I'm cool with either. I think they're going to say yes or no.
Yep. They're going to have a conviction for sure. Like, we don't want him. We want to move on. We have our bridge guy, or we have our vision at quarterback. And I'm hoping that Woody Johnson is kind of like, okay, he's like, Woody Johnson he's a weasel. He's a coward because he won't answer anything. You won't have a press conference and actually answer the questions. But that's the most important one. He had his little exclusive with the New York Post, but I literally wanted to say to all of us, I have no ties to Aaron Rodgers whatsoever. What the next regime wants is what they get. He stays or goes based on them, not his decision. If he still wants to play, you're getting released. Sorry, you're out of here. I kind of want that because I don't want to scare away any kind of candidate based on him. I just don't.
Yeah, man. I mean, listen, if we had Lamar or Burrow or Josh Allen or, a great quarterback that was young, I want to hire a coach to build around that. Like what's going on in Chicago. Yep. Caleb is the prize jewel. Yep. I want a coach that can develop Caleb. With the Jets, like, even if Rodgers turns it around a little bit and has like a great year, it's 1 year at 40, whatever. Yep. Rodgers can win MVP next season. Like the length of Rodgers' playing career is it's coming to a close. Yep. Right. So no matter how good or bad Rodgers is, that to me should not be a factor at all in what the Jets' future plan should be. It should be, let's go out and hire smart, qualified, experienced people and allow them 100%. To make the decisions. That's my take on it. Yep, I don't want ownership to continue to step in. Sam, I appreciate you, bro. What do you think of front loading a contract offered of Vrabel? Oh man, 22 to 23. That's a lot of money, bro. I mean, it's not my money. It doesn't count against the cap. So whatever. Like, I guess Woody can spend it. He, can afford it.
I mean, what's the goal of that is what, to have him come here over to Patriots? I mean, I think he's in his heart, he's a Patriot. That's where that's like his legacy job, I think, right? Like I think money's a factor, but I don't think the Jets are going to outbid him to bring him here over New England. I don't see it happening. I think he's, for being honest, I think Jets are being used as leverage. That's what I think's happening. I just kind of, that's how I feel.
Well, what if the Patriots go with Ben Johnson?
I mean,
I guess maybe Vrabel would then maybe make sense with the Raiders.
but the way the Patriots are handling themselves right now with the interviews today, it's like they're interviewing him on Thursday. It's a joke, dude.
Yeah.
You know what's going to happen. Like we had this argument last night too. It's like, well, give Vrabel anything he wants and all this stuff. At some point, you got to realize you don't come off completely desperate. Like you can't get played, and I just think that the Jets are getting played here.
Bro, I appreciate you, man. Thank you. Former head coaches should be your first option. But then, so I agree with you. But it's funny because we'll throw out head coaches that have head coach or former head coaches, but it seems like no one wants them outside of Brian Flores, Mike Vrabel. And there is like a subset of fans that want Rex back. No one's clamoring for Vance.
Mm-mm.
No one's clamoring for Arthur Smith or Matt Nagy.
Yeah, so, I mean, but see, it's like former head coach is a good start, but then it's like, what did they do as a former head coach that's encouraging to you? Like Vrabel, you saw really good things. Like, all right, you saw 2 very good years. Players liked him, respected. You've seen how he's hopefully developed since then. You see that. Like Adam Gase is a former head coach. He's not on my list. Robert Saleh's not on my list. Like you got to say they could be a former head coach, but what did they do there to make you feel better about what they did to want to bring them into your organization? That's kind of the caveat for that.
For sure. For sure. Yeah, Cliff's interesting. Hater, what's going on, man? My analysis of post first round player to look for. Gunnar Helm, Mike Green, Xavier Watts, Walker Nolan. Dude, Walker Nolan was a beast in high school. Brown, Bakuba, and Cornley. Out of that list, dude, I think I love Xavier Watts. I know he's your guy, Tyson, over at Notre Dame. He just is always in the right spot at the right time. I think Walker Nolan is interesting, but where the Jets are picking, I think that they could trade down into like the late teens to snag either of those guys. But I appreciate the 5, man. Thank you. But Tyson, I
got one question for you though.
Yeah.
First of all, let's not forget Notre Dame's still alive here, everybody. You know what I mean? They're just cruising along here. And Marcus Freeman is a phenomenal coach that the Jets cannot look at because he's overqualified. How would you rank the open jobs right now, the open head coach jobs right now? There's what, 6 teams? How many teams are there?
So we're talking
the jobs that are open right now. So it's got to be, it's like, how would you rank it? And where would you put the Jets?
All right. So let's see here. We got the Jags. We got the Bears. We got the Raiders. We got the Jets. We got the Patriots. We got the Saints. So 6 total. I would say the best, honestly, like if you're just straight objective with it and you don't have any ties anywhere, I would say the most intriguing, Chicago and New England would probably be the top 2 because they have young quarterbacks with potential. They both have a ton of money that you can spend in free agency. And they're coming off 2 just disappointing seasons to where you can sell it to the organization like, hey, like, I'm going to be I'm going to turn you around. Like, trust me, I got you guys. Like if you're Ben Johnson walking into that. So Jets aren't top 2.
Nope.
I think.
Now the Jaguars with Trent Baalke staying there, which is absolutely ludicrous at this point.
Crazy.
Does that make that? I understand Trevor Lawrence is there. They have talent down in Jacksonville, but Trent Baalke being there, would you want that job knowing that in theory, your general manager could be on the hot seat? He could be fired next year. There's a chance that he could be finally fired. Is that a hindrance there? Or you ignore that and saying an owner that's willing to spend a lot of young talent and a lot of talent, like you have Trevor Lawrence, does that still put you over the Jets?
I think the Jets and the Jags are in a similar boat. I would right now, I would probably have the Saints at the bottom. The Raiders as that next one up at 5. And then it depends on how you look at the I would probably go with the Jaguars because the Jaguars is the better option because you don't have to worry about the quarterback position. No matter how you feel about Trevor, he's still a guy with potential. He's still a starter. I think Khan is someone who continuously just gets the hires wrong,
Yep.
but he's not someone that meddles. He has other things going on. He pays a lot of money and he's down to give GMs a ton of money in free agency to spend. Like he's not someone that's going to, nickel and dime a free agent over $2 million or $3 million. Like he's just like, get it done.
So
Like you always see the Jaguars overpaying for contracts. And I would rather have an owner that's willing to overpay than underpay.
now, why would you have the Raiders so low? They have the top pick, and the owner spends money. They have, I mean, do you put any stock into having the higher draft pick to being a more marketable?
Respectfully disagree. I feel like Jax is the toilet team in Florida. Yeah, but you could turn it around, right? All these teams are in rough shape.
Yep.
The reason why I have the Raiders so low is because they need to find a quarterback, and they don't have a top 3 pick. So if you want to go up and try to snag one of those guys, it's going to take some draft capital to go and do that. I also think the division is really tough with Denver being back and the Chargers being back. So you have Sean Payton, Andy Reid, Jim Harbaugh, Pat Mahomes, Bo Nix, Justin Herbert. I think it's just that's 6 brutal games every year. So with that said, you also have some veterans on the roster that were impactful. A Max Crosby, Jacoby Myers. What's going to happen with those guys? Will they want out if you want to kind of embrace the rebuild? I don't know. I like the Raiders. I want them to do well. And I do think if they hire the right guy, they can, go out and snag, be a 500 team. But I just feel as though the Patriots are a better gig. The Chicago Bears are a better gig if you come in and present yourself like the savior.
Okay, so if you're saying
the Saints are I like Loomis, but just the cap situation is just not good at all. I just feel like I would be stepping in to a team that is already constructed, and I can't do anything about it. So I just have to kind of wait for these guys to leave.
But that could also be a chance to have some stability because you're not pressured to win right away because you have to endure. You got to clean things out. So you're not a win now team by no means. You got to clean some things up. That may buy you 2 years. But if you go, so if we assume that Vrabel goes to the Patriots, are you assuming that Ben Johnson goes to the Bears?
Yes.
Okay, so there you had those two.
Ben Johnson's not going to the Saints. He's not going to the Jets. I don't see him going to the Raiders.
So if you have Ben Johnson off the table, Vrabel's gone. To me, I have a weird feeling. I don't know why I think Kingsbury's going to the Jaguars, but I don't know. I just had that weird feeling about that. But who do you see going to the Jags then?
Liam Cohen.
That makes a lot of sense too.
Liam Cohen, I think, makes a ton of sense for Jacksonville. Right now, like if I just have to take a guess, I would say this is going to be fun. We should do this actually every week. And by the way, for everyone watching next week, we're going to be on Tyson's channel Tuesday at 7:00.
Yep.
Let's Talk Jets Radio if you don't know it, but you guys probably do. I would say Vrabel, Patriots, Ben Johnson, Bears, Liam Cohen, Jaguars. I'm going to say Aaron Glenn, Saints.
Yep.
That Raiders gig is tough, man. I could see Brian Flores actually fitting with the Raiders. Hard, old school, has that connection to Tom Brady, the Patriot kind of way.
Yep.
I know you can argue, well, they just tried that with Josh McDaniels, but I think McDaniels and Flores are complete opposites. By the way, I think Antonio Pierce would be a sweet coordinator option for a team out there that needs a DC. But K dude, I appreciate that, man.
No, but you're think the Tom Brady thing and the Brian Flores thing. Brian Flores with the chip on his shoulder, like he like a true rebuild.
He's like a Raider. Like he looks like he just kind of feels like.
So now, based on what you're saying, you've now taken Aaron Glenn away from me. You've taken Brian Flores away from me, and you've taken Vrabel away from me. So you're really killing all my dreams tonight. So who, after all this, is the Jets head coach?
Matt Nagy. No, I don't know, dude. Like the Jets are just such a weird, and that's a big reason why we need to hire the GM. And that's bro. This is me just being honest. Of course, I can spin it in a way where Brian Flores interviews with the Jets, and we hire Ryan Grigson, and we have that instant connection, and that Woody Johnson is on board and everything. I'm just trying to be real and trying to take my biases out of it. I think Aaron Glenn is probably pretty realistic. And a part of me is just saying Matt Nagy to kind of irritate you, but
No, but like there's legitimate ties to the Saints. There is. Like that's a matter of what it could come down to money opportunity. Like I could very easily see him going to the Saints. No problem with that. But then like, all right, if we go on based on that, how did the Jets pivot? And then I get uncomfortable. Then I'm gonna get a little nervous because now it's like take away my 3 guys that I want.
You can you can spin it however you want it, right? Like you can say, well, Joe Brady has a ton of connections to the Saints. He's worked there. Sean Payton coaching tree. He knows the organization. Former wide receiver coach there. Obviously, he was over at LSU too. Yep. You can argue that Brian Flores was the top finalist when they needed a coach, and then they gave it to Dennis Allen because they wanted to play it safe. But Brian Flores was this close to getting that Saints job. There was a lot of mutual interest there. Yep. Could that happen again? Loomis is still the shot caller. He's obviously going to remember that interview.
Yep.
So then if Flores goes to the Saints, who goes to the Raiders? If Vrabel's off the board, could Nagy go to the Raiders? He knows the division well. So you can again spin it however you want it. Maybe Ben Johnson goes to the Patriots. He wants to work with Drake May and stuff like that, and he wants the top pick. I don't there's a lot of things that could happen.
I don't think it's going to play out for a couple of weeks too. I think this is going to drag out because guys are only available so much. The guys are still available, like Flores, Glenn, all these guys. It's a very limited time period to actually interview them. So your second interview gets pushed back. So it could be a waiting game as well.
Yeah, and Hater, bro, I appreciate you, man. A rookie head coach, but I wonder if we hired Greenberg, would he bring Cohen with him? Only flaw I see with Greenberg is he's a finance guy, not scouting. But he could bring on, someone that knows scouting. And we were talking a little bit about that before. You can, whether it's someone in the Buccaneers organization, whether it's, a Rick Spielman connection, whether it's a Mike Tannenbaum, like, hey, this guy really helped me when I was in charge, or I've heard fantastic things about so-and-so. Or, it could very well be one of the guys that the Jets have interviewed. Could they hire Louis Riddick to be in charge of the scouting department? That's where his background is. He has that resume with Philly and with Washington, in that same exact role. So, I think it's, I feel like anything is could happen at this point. It's still so early. We're only 2 days removed from the regular season. The second we start getting second interviews, game on. 100%. Game on. But Tyson, bro, I think we covered a lot, man. And I'm excited to do this next week too, when we have, some more interviews, some more names. I don't think there's going to be any hirings with any team out there. But dude, this was a lot of fun, man.
No, I was looking forward to this, man. I like picking your mind with all because there's so much going on. There's so many details out there, but different the executives and what they do and what their mindset is and what your mindset is too. Because everybody has their own criteria for who they want to hire here. So it's always interesting, man.
For sure. So yeah, I appreciate everyone hanging out. Thanks so much for dealing with my cough. I know it was super annoying. Hopefully tomorrow I'll be all good. And yeah, like we were saying a couple minutes ago, next week, Tyson's channel, 7:00. Hopefully we'll have some more information. I love this time of year, man. I love it.
Oh, wait, but you gotta give me game predictions. What's your playoff predictions? Let's go through the games real quick.
True. All right, I'll go Bills over Broncos. I will go, man, that Rams game. I'll stick with AFC. Bills over Broncos, Chargers over Texans. Ravens over Steelers.
I think so too.
I think the Steelers, man, there's a chance that game could be close or that game's just going to be a blowout. I don't know. I don't want to buy into the losing streak of Pittsburgh because they have so many players that I love, especially on defense. But yeah, I appreciate you guys, man. I do. And then on the NFC side, I'm going to go Vikings over Rams in a close one, probably like walk-off field goal. I will go Eagles over Packers. And I that Commanders Bucks game could go either way. It's going to happen, right down the road for me. I think the Bucks are dangerous, but I would not be surprised if Washington comes out just on fire.
Yeah, I'm
No,
my
I'll
only.
go. I'll go Tampa.
Oh, you know Tampa? Yeah, I'm gonna take my only. I'm gonna take the Rams with the upset. I like the Rams a lot, dude.
Ooh, okay.
Yeah, I like the Rams. I think Sam Darnold's got a little. He's a little shook now. He's gonna feel some more pressure because they're a great team that kind of melted a little bit. And then I think the Commanders, the Buccaneers are a weird team. Baker Mayfield's literally carrying them, like because your boy Cohen had some weird play. I was texting you the play calling with Cohen, dude. I'm like, what is he doing? And Mayfield bailed him out with his legs. So I think the Commanders win that one.
You sound like, I mean, by that logic, are you out on Aaron Glenn after the poor performance against Buffalo? There's one bad game.
Did you see his game against the Vikings?
Well, all right. So next Tuesday, if the Bucks beat the Commanders, you better give Cohen props.
Oh yeah, I'll be about Greenberg and Cohen
on
now.
stream.
Yeah,
on
Greenberg
stream.
and Cohen. There's my new team.
Yeah, there you go. So what about in the AFC?
I completely agree with you. I think the
Okay.
Ravens blow them out. I do. I think the Chargers dominate too. I think there's levels. I think with these. So I agree with you.
Houston seems to be going backwards, man. Yep. And by the way, Slowick was on that list. Slowick is. I just don't want him.
Nope.
Don't want Slowick. Last question, man. How do you feel about Ulbrich potentially getting the?
I mean, you gotta Ulbrich has got to be one of the top candidates for this team. There was no quitting him, and he faced the music when Woody Johnson wouldn't. When Woody Johnson went and hid when the season was over, Ulbrich faced the music. And you look at, you're only as good as your last performance, man. They beat up the Dolphins. That's what you talk about right there. The guy is an absolute. He gave his heart and soul to this team. Got a great beard. Gives good.
I will say, man, he obviously, I don't want him to be the head coach. That it goes without saying based off of what we've seen. But I will say, man, stood up, answered the questions, never took a shot, never threw a player on the bus, never snipped at the media, just kind of handled everything as a true professional. And although this was the end of the Jeff Ulbrich era in New York and it did not go well, I'm wishing him nothing but the best moving forward.
He never called timeouts, never held guys accountable. He did a lot of nevers.
That's gonna do it for us. I appreciate you guys. And as always, go Jets.